Hello everybody. Today we're going to be creating the bug symbol scene assignment in Illustrator. Let's get started. I'm going to create a new document and I'm going to use letter size, landscape orientation, and create. All right, from here I am going to start out by adding a background. First, I am going to get my rectangle tool, and I have torn off the palette. So I'm going to go to the shape tools, hold down on the shape tools, click the arrow to tear off the palette. And with my rectangle tool, I am going to choose a gradient swatch for the sky. So first off, what I'm going to do, I'll just go ahead and make a rectangle a solid color. And I would like this to be the sky, and I'm going to give it a gradient. I'm going to drop down my swatches, go to the libraries, gradients, and sky gradients. All right, that's going to pop up. Right now, the rectangle is selected, so I can choose any of my gradient swatches to fill. And I'm going to go ahead and just choose one of these that appeals to me. All right, how about that one? Okay, from here, it's selected and it's linear, and I want it to look like it's the sky and it's kind of a sunset. I'm gonna go get the gradient tool, and the gradient editor bar pops up. So I could edit using the gradient editor bar. I'm gonna go ahead and redraw this gradient so that it goes up vertically. Okay, from here, this looks pretty good, and I don't want to use this rectangle anymore. I don't want it to get in the way of the rest of my document. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my layers palette, hover in that blank spot next to the eyeball, click it to lock this layer. I'm going to add the plus right here to add a new layer. And on the new layer, I am going to add some grass and some rolling hills. To start, I'm going to get the rectangle tool again, and I'm just going to start with a green color fill. And I'm just going to make a rectangle at the bottom of my image. All right, so now I have sort of a flat grassy area. I'm going to add some mountains to this grassy area. And I'm going to do that by adding anchor points to the top path of this rectangle. So we're going to hold down on the pen tool and get the add anchor point tool. It says a plus sign next to the pen tool. All right, I'm going to hover on the selected rectangle and I'm going to click to add a new anchor. And I'm just going to do this several times wherever you think you want to add a mountain. And you can always add more later. All right, so I've added some new anchors. Now what I'm going to do is get the white direct select arrow and pull up on those anchors. So now I've added my mountains. So I've got two new mountains here. If you wanted to, you could add more anchor points and more mountains. Now, right now, they have very angular peaks. Let's turn them into curved, rolling hills. I'm going to go back to the pen tool and get the anchor point tool. Now with the anchor point tool, I'm going to hover on the anchor point. My smart guides say anchor. I'm going to click, hold, and drag out. So now it's rounded and I have a direction handle, which I can actually edit the mountain with. So I'll do that again down here. Click, hold, drag out. Click, hold, drag out. All right, so now I have a couple of rolling hills. If you don't like that, you can always just go back with the anchor point tool and click it and release. Click and release. And now they're back to being corner points or angles. All right, so I have some rolling hills. Next, I'm going to give the hills a highlight with the mesh tool to make them look 3D. All right, I'm going to get the mesh tool and I'm going to say, okay, where's the light source coming from? Well, in this case, it's a sunset. It's probably behind the mountains, but let's go ahead and also say that there's some light coming from up top. So I'm going to click to add a mesh. Now I've got one mesh grid right here, and you'll see that the path of the mesh grid tried to follow the path of the hills. I'm going to get the white direct select arrow, click the mesh point where it crosses, and now bring up my color picker and choose a lighter value as my highlight. All right, so what you should see here if I click away is that highlight mostly here, and it's trying to extend itself to the rest of the mountain. If you want to edit this mesh and edit the highlight, you can get the white direct select arrow and edit the path of the highlight. Okay, so we have our background sky and we have the rolling hills with a mesh for a highlight. Next, we're going to create a bug. And I'm going to start out by making my bug on the scratch board. So I'm just going to scroll over. Oops, sorry. I'm going to scroll over to the scratch board. Okay, to make my bug, I'm going to go get the ellipse tool. And first off, I'm going to create the body of the bug. All right, when you do your own bug, think about making it look unique to you. So change up your colors. It shouldn't look exactly like mine. All right, so I'm going to make sort of an imaginary bug, maybe based on an Egyptian scarab. All right, so first off, I have the body with an ellipse. I'm going to get the ellipse tool and draw another ellipse to be the head. All right, from here, I'm going to give it a mesh, a highlight. And I'm going to click once to give it that highlight. And I think that I'll go ahead and select it and change it. Maybe this time I'll give it sort of a purple highlight so that it doesn't look necessarily realistic, but kind of fun. And I'll do the same thing to the head. Get the mesh tool, click once for a mesh grid. Purple was already in my foreground fill, so it automatically gave it the purple fill. All right, from here, I'm going to make some wings. I'm going to go back and get the ellipse tool, and I'm going to drag out to make a wing, and I'm going to edit the wing. I'm going to get the white direct select and give the wing a little bit of a twist. All right, looks good. Okay, from here, I'm going to duplicate the wing, and I'm going to do that by using the reflect tool. The reflect tool is going to duplicate it and flip it. So let's go ahead and find our reflect tool. There it is. Okay, so you're going to click and hold on the rotate tool. It looks like a sort of arced arrow, and then get the reflect tool. Now using the reflect tool, I'm going to hover kind of at the middle axis where I want to reflect the wing, and I'm going to option click or alt click. And you can see here it popped up the reflect menu, and see how it reflected the wing, but it didn't copy it. All right, so I actually need to click vertical is how I wanted it to reflect, and I need to click copy. Okay, so there's my wing. It's been copied and reflected. I want to make my wings transparent. So I'm going to click on one and shift click on the other to select both. And let's go up here to opacity. And how about reduce that so that they're transparent? All right, you could play around with it. Maybe I want to give them a stroke. Right now they don't have a stroke. Let's see what it looks like with an interesting stroke. All right, I don't know. So maybe you like that, maybe you don't. I think I'm going to take away the stroke though, but I did some experimenting. Okay, the other thing you could do, how about I'm going to give it 4 wings. I'm going to shift click on both wings, and then I'm going to hold Option or Alt on your keyboard, click, drag, and I've got a duplicate of the wings. All right, and now I'll just kind of play around with them. How about I want the duplicate wings to be smaller and rotated, and maybe even make them a different color. How about that turquoise color? All right, so I'm just resizing them and rotating, and maybe I'll even select both of those blue wings and reduce their opacity even more because it's very bright. Or how about I'll shift click on both and maybe give them a different color. Yeah. Okay, so from here, give your bug some interesting details. Maybe it's going to have more wings, maybe it's going to have feet, maybe it's going to have antenna. I'm going to get the pencil tool. So I'm going to hold down on the shaper tool and get the pencil tool. And I'm going to do no fill, stroke only. And I'm going to draw some little antenna. Okay, from here they're very thin. I'm going to select both of them with the black arrow, and I'm going to experiment. I'm going to increase the stroke weight, and how about I'll give them a different stroke profile? How about that chisel, where it'll be thick at the bottom but thinner at the top? Okay, so here is my bug. From here, I am going to get the black arrow and draw a selection around the whole thing. All of it's selected. And I'm going to group these together. Object, group. And I'm grouping them so that the bug now functions as one object and I can't pull it apart. Object, group. All right, at this point, you could duplicate the bug. I want you to make more than one bug. You could duplicate the bug, but keep in mind, every time you duplicate an object, you make the file size of your Illustrator document very large and it could crash. So Illustrator prefers if you make what's called a symbol. So what we're going to do is go to Window and open up the Symbols palette. There it is, Symbols. All right, here's the Symbols palette. And in the Symbols palette, there's this plus sign. We're going to go ahead and click on that. And notice that my bug is selected. I'm going to click on it. And it's a new symbol, so I'll say bug. All right, export type, choose graphic, and then you can leave the rest alone and click OK. All right, now you should see right here in my symbols palette, there's my little bug. Okay, I am going to deselect and leave this guy over on the scratch board. He's my original artwork. I don't want to mess him up. I might need him later. So let's deselect and put him over there. Next, what we're going to do is use the symbols tool. Now that you've made this symbol, you've got to use a symbol tool. We're going to go over here to the spray can, and you'll see here's all these symbol tools, how to edit symbols. We're going to tear off the palette of all the symbols. Now, the first tool is the spray can, and that's the one that lets you spray on the symbol. Now, my cursor is really big. It's probably going to make the symbol really big. So I'm going to use left bracket and make the cursor smaller. Now, if you just click and hold, you'll see that you'll spray a ton of your bugs. All right, and notice there's this bounding box around all of them. That's because if you get the black arrow, you'll see, oops, don't want to move my mountains. I think I'm going to lock the mountains. I'm going to click on the mountain and I'm going to lock it. Object, lock, selection. All right, I don't want my mountains to move, so I'm going to lock them. Okay, now if you click on the bugs, you'll see they function as a group. Okay, so I'm going to hit delete. I don't want all those bugs. All right, so the bug is selected in my symbols palette. Go get my symbol sprayer, and I'm going to just click, click, and release, click and release, click and release. You'll still notice that the bugs are all one set, but I haven't sprayed them on. They're not all over the place. Next, you're going to use the rest of your symbol tools to edit the symbols. All right, the shifter tool lets you shift it. So I'm just kind of clicking and dragging. So the shifter tool lets you move the symbols. Keep in mind you can't edit them like regular objects anymore. If you want this to go faster, go double click on the tool in the tool palette and bring up its options. And if you want to see this move faster, increase the intensity. All right, so I've moved some around. Next tool is our symbol scruncher. Symbol scruncher simply moves them towards each other. So if you noticed, every time I click and drag, it's a small change. But if you want to see a bigger change, once again, double click on the tool, increase the intensity. All right, and then you'll see that kind of move faster. The next one is the symbol sizer. Now with the symbol sizer, if you click on a symbol, it gets bigger. If you option click or alt click, it gets smaller. So I'm going to make the ones that are lower on the picture plane bigger and the ones that are higher on the picture plane smaller to make them look like they're farther away. So option or alt click to make them smaller. All right, so now I might go back and get my shifter and maybe move some of these. Okay, next tool is the symbol spinner. This lets you rotate. So you simply just kind of click it and drag around and wait for that little arrow. And once you see that little arrow, now it tells you, oh yeah, okay, go ahead and rotate. All right, next tool is the symbol stainer. The symbol stainer lets you choose a new color fill and stain the symbol. So let's say I choose this pink and I'm going to click on this one right here. And every time I click, notice it stained it pink. So the dimension is all still there. The value is all still there, but it's got the pink stain. The more you click, the more saturated it is. With the stainer tool, you can remove the stain, click option or alt, hold option or alt, and click until you remove the stain. All right, so go ahead and stain, 2 or more of your bugs. I'm keeping with my analogous color scheme here, my blue, my purple, my green. All right, that was the stainer. The next one is the screener tool. The screener tool makes it look like your bug is transparent. So the more you click, the more transparent it is. See how that one's almost gone. To bring it back, alt or option click. All right, so go ahead and make some of your bugs a little transparent. All right, from here, go ahead and add some other details. I'm going to make it look like it's raining in my bug scene. Maybe you're going to give your bug scene some flowers. Maybe you're going to layer on some more hills in the background. Maybe you're going to give it some clouds. All right, I'm going to make a raindrop. I'm going to scoot over to my scratch board, and first off, I'm going to draw an ellipse. Next, I'm going to get the anchor point tool, and I'm going to click on the top of the ellipse to make a little point. With my white arrow, I'll just drag it up a little bit, and there's my raindrop. I would like to give it a little round shape. So I'm going to get that mesh tool, and I'm going to click to create a mesh. I'm going to bring up my color picker and use a lighter value, almost white. Okay, and there's my little mesh on the raindrop. Next, I'm going to make it transparent. So I'm going to go ahead and select this and reduce the opacity. Okay, from here, I could make this a symbol also. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. I'm going to add new and graphic and rain for the name and okay. Okay, I'm going to deselect that raindrop because that's an actual object. And now I'm going to go get my symbol sprayer and I'm going to spray on some raindrops. And I'm thinking that they might be kind of big. Oh yeah, they are way big. And my intensity is pretty high. All right, so from here, I'm going to go ahead and double click on the sprayer tool. And I'm going to reduce the intensity. And I'm also going to reduce the set. I only want maybe 1 for the density. And I'll click OK. All right, now let's try again. Oh yeah, there it is, just 1. Okay, so I've got some rain. Okay, from here, I could go ahead and edit with my shifter, my scruncher, my sizer. I'm going to go ahead and use a sizer, and I'm going to Option or Alt click and just make them smaller. Oops, okay, got that one small. Okay, all right, so I'm going to play around, add some more details. When you're done, go ahead and save this as your last name dash bug. All right, first off, make sure you save it as an Illustrator file. And then later, you're going to export it. When you're done, you're going to export it and export as a JPEG. And I do have a lot of stuff on my scratch board, so I could delete those or later crop them out in Photoshop.